NFL trade deadline.
Yes, it was a lot of teams who are contenders made power moves, and Adam Schefter put out a tweet which gave a list of all of the moves that were made. JB, you got that one? Perfect. I mean, look at this. I mean, when you really, a couple of things that stand out to me are, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs getting DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Uche. And you saw DeAndre Hopkins pay immediate dividends if you watched that Monday Night Football game. Yep. The Baltimore Ravens getting Lamar another weapon, trying to address their pass defense, which is actually the worst in the NFL, believe it or not, by getting Tre'Davious White. I don't know what that's going to do. I think he's kind of cooked, but I get them for trying. You see the Commanders make a big move at corner. You see Buffalo, the Amari Cooper move. You've seen the dividends of that, but then he went out hurt again, which is that's the nature of the NFL.
Just cheesing, bro. I'm just over here cheesing because it's like we already know the news, but it's still good to see Detroit Za'Darius Smith.
Oh, yeah. And the Minnesota Vikings, I think, made a underrated move by getting Cam Robinson. But you know what? Everybody's trying to improve. Everybody's trying to fill holes or replace injuries on their teams. And the Lions are just doing just that as well. And I honestly think that when it's all said and done, the Za'Darius Smith move will prove to be as impactful as any other move on this list because of the need that was for a Za'Darius Smith. They needed a pass rush, and by golly, they got one.
Ah, man, they got one. It's beautiful to see, and I know we didn't get to get your reaction on this. If you're ready, KG, Za'Darius Smith, because our reel in which you posed that question, it blew up all over socials. Yeah. And then, like a prophet, right? Because you did this with Terry Arnold too, right? We had the draft coverage. You put all that stuff out there. You and Broder were just absolutely right on that stuff, including Broder coming out and saying during the draft that the Lions are going to aggressively pursue Terry Arnold. But I digress. Shout out to the Woo Crew.
Right.
You were talking about Za'Darius Smith a lot. You were like, I think this is it, man. It blew up. Talk to me about it.
Well, actually, I got to give credit to Sam because he was really on this bandwagon at first. But I do got to do some repenting today. But overall, the move, I love the move. I love the compensation that it took to get that. When Sam did his write-up last week, I think it was, he said it would be a 4th-round pick. It turned out to be a 5th, and the next year 6th. Right. They somehow got a 7th back. So, hey, Brad Holmes is doing Brad Holmes
Flannel
things.
Was cooking, huh?
Yeah, man. So, hey, Brad Holmes doing Brad Holmes things. But my first initial thought wasn't even this year. It was really the next year, because I'm thinking about when you get Aiden Hutchinson back and you have him, you have finally a bookend in Za'Darius Smith, and then you have DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil in the middle. That's one of the best D-lines in football is going to shape up to be next year, and that's going to automatically put you as a favorite for the Super Bowl next year. So I really like this move. I know it's going to help us this year. I got to backtrack on the fact that I said it might not be enough. After looking at this thing in totality, after looking at how the Lions have won without Aiden Hutchinson, you're going to get, what's his name, the DN back.
Josh Pascal.
Josh Pascal. You're going to get him back. So I think that is enough to eventually get over the hump, but we shall see. It has to be, right?
Hey, it has to be, man. That's why I love this team. Everybody is about each other, and you're right. I remember it now as if it's playing over in my head like it was just happened. You said, I'm going to try and put on my Brad Holmes hat. I'm going to try and look at this from his perspective and his point of view. And you're right. You teed up that Za'Darius Smith trade, and you know what Brad Holmes did? He was like, that's pretty good, Flannel. But I'm going to do it one better, and it's going to be an absolute steal.
As I've said before, and I'll continue to reiterate it, a 5th and a 6th round pick is nothing. Nothing. That is, and what Za'Darius Smith is going to cost the Lions, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the upgrade that he is going to give both this year and the possibility next season is it's tantalizing to say the least. And I think that will maybe motivate Hutch to come back as strong as ever, because as I said yesterday, I had to confirm and fact check it, but now I have. Myles Garrett has been one of the best DNs, best players in football for pretty much since the day he walked into the league, certainly since his 2nd year. The only season in which he won Defensive Player of the Year was the season in which Za'Darius Smith was his bookend for the whole year. So Aiden Hutchinson, 2025, huh? Obviously, we got to get past 2024 and win the Super Bowl this year. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but as you said, KG, this year it's a great move, but you can't help but look forward to next year. You just can't.
You can't, man. You can't. And you know what? Let's talk a lot more about this. I want to be able to give this type of conversation its full just due, because yesterday we were just in the spirits of Victory Monday, Victory Tuesday, and really experiencing Brad Holmes going out there and cooking. Brad Holmes absolutely cooked up, but we got an opportunity to sit on it and want to be able to grade this thing. And chat family, I want you guys in the chat as well. I know that Za'Darius Smith wasn't everybody's first. I know that some people believed that we should have gone out there and gotten a second player as well. I know a lot of us, we pontificated that. That's my word, right? Word of the month, word of the last couple months. But for Brad Holmes, as we saw last year, the decisions that he made at the trade deadline, whether it was to do something or not, it was just enough to actually get this team further than a lot of us expected, including the one great game that Uncle Bruce Irvin played in. Like every single move, man, everything mattered. And so now this year, they make an even more drastic move at the trade deadline. They bring in Za'Darius Smith on a steal. We already talked about the draft compensation. $605,000 is all the Lions have to pay this year because the Browns have already paid $11.4 million, man. So just as you've gotten the opportunity to sleep on this, I know that this was a move you thought Brad Holmes would make, but how do you grade this?
First off, why the F did the Browns do that?
I don't know.
I mean, no. I'm glad that they did, but
an A for me.
I think that's proof that a lot of GMs in the world aren't Brad Holmes. Most aren't, because I think they got fleeced, but that's neither here nor there. So for me, the grade is 100% an A. And I'm happy that Brad Holmes, first of all, recognized that Super Bowl windows are precious. And you can't let things like catastrophic injuries completely derail them. And to the Lions' credit, without Aiden Hutchinson, they were 3-0. But I still think Brad Holmes recognized that there was a need. They needed to get more of a pass rush, so he went out and got Za'Darius Smith, while also not compromising his team-building principles. I know a lot of us, myself included, would have been perfectly fine with a more of an F them pick style of dealing with this. If you had to give up a couple first-rounders to get Crosby or Garrett, I would have 100% done it. But Brad Holmes, he wasn't even willing to, the reports are he wasn't even willing to give up a fourth for Za'Darius Smith, so he had to kind of negotiate and haggle, and he was able to, as I've said before, get Za'Darius Smith for, in my opinion, absolutely nothing. A 5th and a 6th round pick, even for a Brad Holmes, is not that valuable. It's just not. It's most valuable to me as like a trade piece, but Brad Holmes, he got the move that the Lions needed, and he didn't derail the future at all. Because before I pass it over, I have to repeat these stats. Za'Darius Smith has 5 sacks this season. The Detroit Lions leader, who's not Aiden Hutchinson, is Aleem McNeil with 2.5. These next stats are actually more favorable to the Lions and can speak to the relationship of Za'Darius Smith and Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil and how they can help out. Za'Darius Smith has 26 pressures. Aleem McNeil has 25. They're going to help each other out. Za'Darius Smith has 7 quarterback hits. Levi Onwuzurike has 7 quarterback hits. So he's going to be the pass rushing upgrade, but he's also going to do wonders, I think, for the entire defensive line, as are they going to do wonders for him as well. So absolute, undisputed A.
Absolutely an A. And I like the way that you broke it down. Like, I don't want people to just give their grade. Tell me why. And you know what, Steve-O baby, I've seen you in the chat. I'm gonna make sure that we shout out the chat family. It says Koolaid, as I was eating my pizza and cheese bread on my birthday yesterday. Hey, Steve-O baby, happy birthday. Did he say that in the chat yesterday? If we missed that, we're sorry, man. Happy belated birthday, to you, Steve-O baby, man. Thank you for always being one of the regulars in the chat. And being one of those contrarians, too. But he said, as I was eating it on my birthday yesterday, I realized I like Brad Holmes because he doesn't listen to what people tell him to do. And I see your other comment in there as well. He says that he gives him a B+ for this deal. He says, I'm happy Brad Holmes has a spine and doesn't care what people think of his decisions and choices. I respect Brad Holmes. Hey, I love that, man. And I do believe that Brad Holmes deserves a lot of love this morning. But Za'Darius Smith, as you have stated, Flannel, has put himself in a position for Brad Holmes to get this type of a praise. To be able to step into this team right away, and now you're the sack leader by double-digit sacks. That's nothing to sneeze at. No matter what people believe the narrative was, when we look at what is happening on the field, this guy is going to make a difference for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, as I said, you're going to beat teams like the Tennessee Titans. And hey, they beat the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers on the road without getting a Za'Darius Smith yet, but I ultimately think that was the put the Lions over the top move. As I said yesterday on one of our Instagram reels, I think this is the Super Bowl winning move that Brad Holmes needed to make. And honestly, I'm not even... I know that with Brad Holmes, he's gone about it a little bit of a different way. I know last season there was some question on whether he should have made a move at the trade deadline that was of any significance. Ultimately, he did not. And last season was a little bit different. I don't think it was Super Bowl or bust. Last year, you had to get the division monkey off of your back, which had been 30 years. You had to do that, and they won a couple of playoff games. However, one of the reasons why I'm happy and I'm not mad at the idea of necessarily keeping up with the Joneses, which that's not what he's doing. It's not a perfect comparison, but you'll see what I mean, is that last season...
Break it down.
Last season, it's not just that the Lions didn't get a Chase Young or a Montez Sweat, which I'm okay with, by the way. I just want to break this down. It's who got Chase Young and Montez Sweat. The teams that got them, like... Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers, they got Chase Young. And I'm not saying he was the biggest reason, but he was a reason that the team was the best team in the NFC. And they ultimately got farther than the Lions. The Bears got Montez Sweat. And what was the Lions' arguable worst game of last season? At Soldier Field. And Montez Sweat made Jared Goff's life absolute hell. Sacked him once, hit him 4 times, knocked a pass down. So with Brad Holmes...
And what did fans say instantly?
they said, man, why didn't we get this guy? So I'm not mad that Brad Holmes didn't do it last year. I'm happy that Brad Holmes recognized that this is a Super Bowl window. He had to change his approach a little bit. And you know what? He did it without having to compromise any of his team building principles, as I already said. So shout out to Brad Holmes for having self-awareness and evolving and doing what's best for the Detroit Lions.
Yep. Shout out Chat Family. IT Hip says, I think Brad shocked us all because the Browns GM was asking for a fourth round draft pick ever since Hutch got hurt. But Brad just did what he always does and waits to attack at the perfect moment. Best GM ever. Jordan Lionheart at Sam Reynolds. I think it helped that Z Smith wanted to be traded here as well.
What
a culture change.
I mean, how could you not want to be traded here from the Browns? The Browns were, like I said, his first year with Cleveland, there was some hope. And they made the playoffs, and they had a good defense, and Za'Darius Smith was a big part of it. But this season, it just turned into a dumpster fire overnight. But it's Cleveland. That's why they're the Cleveland Browns. And they're still the Cleveland Browns. The Lions have actually evolved and beaten those allegations.
How does the old song go? Detroit, at least you're not Cleveland.
Oh, man. God, I actually kind of feel bad for Browns fans. But then again, I don't because... I'm just enjoying what the Lions have.
Doesn't feel bad for them.
And that's why I don't feel bad. They ruined that man. And Braylon Edwards, he still managed to put up numbers. He had a great season in Cleveland with Derek Anderson as his quarterback.
Talk about it. Thomas Woodford says, what the trade does is it galvanized the spirit of Detroit more than the team physically. I definitely do. And think about it. You're bringing a guy who's going to eat. I saw another comment in here I wanted to read. If I see it or if I don't get to you, please put it back into the chat. But he also talked about how this is going to help guys like Aleem on that defensive line. Yes. I know you talked about it earlier as well. This changes things now because the defense has to account for a guy who has 5 sacks so far in the season. This guy's an opportunity, I believe, on this defensive line to challenge for the league lead in sacks, honestly. Just based on not that he could be what Aiden Hutchinson was, but based on how we've seen this defense stay afloat without Aiden Hutchinson, and now you're bringing Za'Darius Smith to this line, I believe that he has an opportunity to go out there and eat, and this is going to unlock things for guys like Aleem, for guys like Levi O, for guys like DJ Reader, especially in the middle of that line. We talk about the running numbers and how the opponent running yards have creeped up. We've seen the gashes start to happen. We've seen them get 20 and 30 yards and such, and the assignment doesn't get easier as this schedule marches on. So to be able to get him and to know that now you can kind of switch and change and relax your coverages, think about it now. Instead of having to have your safeties blitz, you're able to have them say, you know what, no more 20-yard runs. That's what I like about this move and why it unlocks so much. So it might not be the Myles Garrett of trades, but this still is one, like you said, is a Super Bowl type move.
Absolutely, it is a Super Bowl type move. And Ed O'Neill in the chat, if Smith gets its 5 sacks, including the playoffs, is that a win trade? I think those are the type of numbers we can certainly expect. honestly, whether the trade is a win or a loss, and this is the story of the Lions season, is whether or not they win a Super Bowl. There's a reason why most of the chat calls the Chase Young trade for the 49ers not an ultimate win, because they did not cash one in. But Za'Darius Smith, as far as individually, I think you can pencil him in for 5 sacks and a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and maybe having a game or two which he just absolutely wrecks and damn near dominates and wins himself.
I'm calling for double-digit sacks for him on this year. I definitely am. I think he's going to eat with this defensive line. I think he's going to eat with Terrell Williams. I believe he's going to eat with those safeties sitting behind him and those linebackers. This sets up beautifully for him. Look what he was already doing with the Browns. And not that it was like cupboard bare over there, but I just trust in the culture and in the organization of the Lions.
Yes, and as we talked about, just to be fair, having Myles Garrett as your number one and you being the bookend, that does help. That does help Za'Darius Smith put up numbers. But this defensive line, and we talk about the interior, you mentioned Ali McNeil, I mentioned Ali McNeil. Ali McNeil's playing well still. He's just, at this point in these last 3 games, in terms of putting up individual numbers, is probably asked to do a little bit too much.
You go.
Now, Za'Darius Smith can take away some of the attention. And the reality is that as great as this team has been playing, as well as this defense has stepped up, when you have starting edge rushers as Alkamin Muhammad and Levi Onwuzurike, who's not even really an edge rusher, your ceiling, I don't know if that's necessarily sustainable. I'm damn proud of the way that they've played, and I'm damn proud that I believe it only takes a Za'Darius Smith and not a Myles Garrett type of move to make them Super Bowl favorites. But you'd much rather have Za'Darius Smith than not. And you'd also much rather have Josh Paschal be back healthy, which it looks like he will be.
Yeah, it's been good to see the steps that Josh Paschal has taken as well.